Welcome to Painting Business Pro Show. Today I've got Mason Marquis. Mason's done 3 of these with me now. So Mason started his company as a 20-year-old 7 years ago. So now he's 27 years old. He's doing $6.7 million in business at his first location, $2 million at his second location. So he oversees $8.7 million in business. And in this episode, we dive really deep into marketing. You know, he gets 180 leads a week. His company at one location, his company does over 50 estimates every week. So we're going to dive deep into marketing, how he does it. And there's some really brilliant stuff that he has to share about that. And then we're also going to spend quite a bit of time on culture and building a culture because he's got over 15 employees. And that's something he's worked a ton on that is necessary for building a big organization. So I think you'll really enjoy the episode. If you're young and hungry, or you have big ambitions to grow a company, or you need some help with marketing, this is going to be a killer episode for you. So without further ado, let's jump in. And I hope you enjoy the conversation I have here with Mason. This is the Painting Business Pro Show, where we share inspiring stories from people who are just like you, who have created extraordinary results in their business and their life. We'll take the mystery out of it and show you behind the scenes exactly how these results happen. There's a simple process and a roadmap to follow to create life-changing success in business. You are capable of more than you realize. So listen in, discover what's possible, and let's unlock your potential. Let's go. Yo, Mason, welcome to the show. This is our third conversation that we've had, so people can go back and listen to them, but excited to share where you're at now. I don't even know where you're at, so let's start off with give us an idea of how the business is going today and what's going on in your world.
So 2 businesses that are my primary focus. I've got Spray Tex Painting, which I started in 2017, and then Yellow Rose in 2021. Spray Tex is on track to do 6.7 million in total sales, and Yellow Rose just shy of 2 million. So combined 8.79 million. My day to day, I still wear a lot of hats in my business. That's something I've struggled with and taken a lot of shortcuts along the way. So I have, I think, probably 8 or 9 direct reports just at my Dallas-Fort Worth Spray Tex location. All the sales team reports to me, and just till about a month ago, all the production team reported to me. So that was a big obstacle or bottleneck for Spray Tex.
Wild, man. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, what's the team look like right now?
So I have 5 full-time salespeople. I have a 6th salesperson. He's a salesperson that went and started his own business, and he comes back and runs appointments for us. I have 3 office staff.
Sorry, how many sales was that? You said 6? 5/6?
5.5, yeah.
Okay.
I've got 3 office staff.
Uh-huh.
I've got 4 in production.
Mm-hmm.
We actually just hired a 5th. So I've got 5 in my production team.
That's probably appropriate. I mean, typically a sales rep per production manager makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in where you've got 9 direct reports.
No kidding.
Yeah. What are you doing about that?
Well, the first place I wanted to address was production.
Uh-huh.
So I spent a long time with actually kind of a challenging partnership. My initial project manager, he's one of my best friends, and he's a partner at the company. And I just kept trying to force it for years. You know, he's going to be the man. He's going to run the department. And he's extremely talented. Like, no one can handle big client issues or driving revenue better than him. He's got all the experience. But when it came to ops and operations needing to get more and more sophisticated, he just wasn't the right fit for the job. That created a lot of tension between us. And we ended up just reorganizing the whole department. So there were some people that had to go, and we brought in our new director of production, Stan, and it's been about a 6-month transition, but he's finally starting to take the reins and run the department.
So does everyone report to him now in that department? Okay, so you've got a guy that runs. So now you only have him, three office managers and five. So that's why it's nine. And so it was like 14.
It wasn't. It was one more.
Okay. Because
Just
Josh had some people reporting to him,
exactly.
and he just isn't quite the guy for that.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. All right. And then is the plan what's the next plan then? Is the plan to do the same thing with the office department and the sales department?
The office department, I only have one direct report. The um, the salespeople, that's my next project for 2025. Is find a
Okay.
sales manager. I've had a sales manager in the past. He's still with me. I just decided I was committed to a different type of leadership,
Hmm.
and I went back, rebuilt some things, really got focused on where we were short. A big part of my story, and we can get more into it, is just trying to go too fast. I didn't have a solid foundation. I just tried to go too fast. And over and over and over again in my story, I've scaled fast. It hasn't worked. And I've had to go back and rebuild. And this is just another symptom of that.
Yep. Yep. Well, that would be worth touching on before we get into, all the lessons and things like that
Yeah,
that we can share with people. Um, just some other things on the business side. So you're doing 6.7 million, and then I think we'll probably stay focused on that one, and then maybe separately we can talk about what it's like to open other locations. We'll see if we get
sure.
into that. By the way, Dallas, Spray Texas in Dallas, and then Yellow Rose is in, remind me,
Wake
Waco. That's right. Okay, so if we're just looking at Spray Tex, how's the health of the business? So obviously top line revenue is healthy. You did around 5 million last year, didn't you?
Yep.
Okay, so I
We
mean
did
growth is still there.
yeah.
Sorry.
We did 5.5. So we've grown about 15% year over year.
Yeah, so growth is good, top line is good, sorting out the organizational structure. What else? Anything else just to share about the health of the business, the profitability of the business? Anything else you'd want to share that's just to kind of get the lay of the land?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of opportunity to clean up net profit. I think that's something I learned opening up a new company
Yeah,
is just how you can establish strong net profit early on and just how important that is.
yeah,
We've actually had to work on growing net profit as the business grew, which is the opposite of a lot of businesses. So year over year, we're up from 10% to 12%.
yeah.
I still think we could be a 15% net profit company. There's things I need to clean up, and most of it is performance related. At my size, as you know, you've got fixed costs, and the better you perform against those fixed costs, your profitability just starts to skyrocket. So a big hindrance of our performance this year was we didn't meet targets in revenue produced in Q3,
Hmm.
and that cut our net profit nearly 40%.
It's
Uh,
huge.
it's huge. It's the fixed costs don't care how much revenue you do or don't do. And if I could just, yeah, I need to focus and learn how to hit targets consistently, and our profitability would be where it needs to be.
You know, this just keeps coming up like as a theme. I made a video a month or so ago. So it was probably released in August or September 2024. Um, the thumbnail says last dollar income on it, but anyone should go watch that just to understand, like, really understand the math behind what Mason's talking about, because it has rocked our companies, messing that up. Missing targets is just brutal with profitability. So, anyways, 12% is not bad, but I mean, how do you feel about being at 12%?
I think I have some shame around it sometimes.
Yeah,
Like I could do better, and yeah, I have some shame around it. It's definitely not. It's an honest living. Like I own almost 90% of the company, so I'm definitely not hurting. But I see a big opportunity. It's just a weakness of mine as an operator that I know I want to overcome. and I'm seeing results. I'm obviously not patient with it, but it's a big focus of mine right now.
You know, a couple things. One is, if I could just say this in shame to spirit, that'd be great. But I wouldn't have any shame around it. I think that's probably on the higher side of like industry averages from what I've heard and seen. Like a lot of companies over 1 million a year, it's 6 to 12%.
Yeah,
Like for me, how I feel about margins there isn't is worry. Like it stresses me out to have margins there because if you miss those targets, if something happens that I'm not a big believer in, like the economy can take you out or the market can take you out or anything like that, but it can impact you. And as you know, missing a target by 500,000, when the margins are there, it's just stressful to be that tight. Like I don't think people realize that a 12% net margin can be actually like a pretty tight margin,
absolutely.
in a business that's got 30 to 40% gross profit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it absolutely can be. And yeah, I mean, the difference between making $100,000 in a month and losing 100,000, it's actually pretty close.
It is pretty close, which is crazy, and people wouldn't expect that. So, before we move on, so
Sure.
I think it's good for anybody who has big ambitions, who wants to go and grow a 3 or 4 or 5 million dollar company or more. That's what this conversation is good for, or anyone who's young and ambitious. Because you started your company, were you 23,
20,
20? All right, so you started when you're 20, so you're 27 now, 28.
28. Yeah.
So for anybody who's young, and like hungry, just to see like what you can accomplish by the time you're in your late 20s in this business is pretty killer. Um, and then anyone who's got big ambitions, there's a lot of learning lessons that I can share, but also Mason can share, and we'll focus on Mason today, about that path. So just because we're on it, where do you see like improving that margin? Why only 15%? Why do you only see 15%? I guess that's my first question is
Sure.
why only 15?
I think that's just what I'm committed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably spend 4 or 5% on learning and development. Like we spend a ton of money on that. And yeah, I think that's what I'm committed to in
Like
the next
250,000?
like probably 180-ish.
Okay. So yeah.
In the next 2 to 5 years, I'm committed to closer to 15%.
Yeah. And the only reason I'm asking is I think you could aim higher than that too.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just seeing what we're seeing at our companies. Hunter's a good example.
Yeah.
And then Foothills has we're spending money that we don't need to be spending because we're kind of subsidizing some other growth.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, we see like 2025 is then a healthy number, but not sacrificing what other people earn. It comes back to what you said was around performance. So let's just talk about that because
Sure.
those are probably the same levers and knobs to turn to get from 12 to 15. It's the same focuses to get from 15 to 18, 18 to 20, and so yeah, what are the things you see to improve on with performance to drive margins up?
Right now, I see it the biggest opportunities in operations. Really cleaning up not only gross profit percentage, but efficiency of delivering service over and over and over again. We
Hmm.
do 25, 27 jobs a week year round, and really building a strong system that doesn't burn out. So what I discovered is like I can build a system that performs for a while, but can I build a system that sustains over the long run? So
Hmm.
really building those processes from pre-job walkthroughs to final walkthroughs and all the touch points in between. Another big area we're cleaning up is what we do and don't do. So we're constantly revisiting what we don't do and simplifying the services that we're delivering. We do a lot of interior work, which is a little bit less scalable, in my opinion, than exterior. I wish we did mostly exterior, but the tickets for interior are much larger. There's a lot of brick homes, and so the trim only exteriors can be like $3,000, $4,000. A nice full interior can be $20,000, $30,000.
Hmm.
So building good systems that support high quality work that's efficient, turned around quickly, that's what I'm focusing on.
What is the service mix? Because I think that is really wise, and I think a lot of people miss that. Is like, no, this, you're listening to someone who's doing $6.7 million a year, and his focus is like do less work. And I think early on, people are like, let's grow, let's do more work, to fix the marketing problem, but it's actually going to create growth problems later. So someone who's way bigger, it's not there's a ton of work out there. So yeah, what is some of this? What's an example of some things you're not doing?
I think I could be a lot more disciplined about this. Early on, it was revenue, 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 whatever we could get our hands on. We don't do a lot of commercial for one, because we're still trying to clean up and play the game of residential better. Um, we don't do major drywall repair or replacement. We don't do major wood repair or replacement. Some of those jobs sneak through, but primarily we don't touch it. The other thing we look for is fit. We don't work well with GCs. We don't work well with really, really high need clients that are expecting like a perfect outcome. And we don't do small jobs very well. So if it's under about $3,000, we do have a small job department, but we really don't focus on that. And we don't, one of the other things we cleaned up earlier this year is if there's any patchwork under $3,000 on the interior, it's just completely a no-go. So we focus on the services with the highest risk and make sure that we're pricing them right. So another one we did is we cleaned up cabinets. For a long time, we were like the Bargate cabinet people in town. That was just a huge disaster. Lots of callbacks. Cabinets are the most difficult job to produce for us. And we kept having issues on a $3,000 job where we do an exterior brick and trim for $10,000 in the same amount of time. It just wasn't worth it. So we redesigned our cabinet process. We're charging a premium now, and we're probably making more money with less clients.
Yep. By the way, this is, Mace, you're the third person in the last like 6 weeks that I've had this conversation with around how your business grows by turning down more services.
It scared me at first. The other thing we've kind of started to steer clear of is we've been a little bit more cautious when screening new leads. Like, is this an area we really want to go to? Is this an area we're successful in? Is this a homeowner we think we could be successful with? And so we actually reduced our number of estimates last quarter, but we increased our total revenue, and our efficiency per salesperson just keeps increasing.
Yep.
So 4 years ago, it took 30 estimates to do $30,000 in revenue. Now it takes closer to 9 or 10.
Yep. Tripled the output per estimate.
Yeah.
How much of that is sales rate? How much of that is job size? Because this is something we need to tie in for everybody is I know what you mean when you say I need to clean up operations,
Okay.
but tie that in, like what does that mean and how does that drive profit and what would you have done in the past, earlier, because you're doing that with Yellow Rose, I imagine that's what you're hinting towards is now that I'm
Sure.
opening a new company, I know how to establish like strong profit from the beginning. So, if you were teaching this to someone who's 5 years behind you, you could go back and tell you from 5 years ago, what are those things you do different and how do they drive what is cleaning up operations and how do they drive profit?
Really get clear on who you are and who you serve, and be extremely disciplined about that.
Yep.
Um, look at efficiency numbers. Production. We had an average job size of $3,000 not that long ago. So production was probably experiencing this nightmare busyness on just $60,000 a week. So as we're trying to scale and grow and offer, really what it comes down to for me is not just cleaning up profitability, but happy customers. Like I want to deliver a great experience. And if I have less customers that are paying more, it's more likely to get that outcome. So we discovered like all of our complaints are coming from jobs under $4,000 and we're losing our ass on them. So how can I focus on getting the right work? And a lot of it is training sales on making good recommendations, slowing down, taking a little bit longer at each appointment. And some of it is just making sure you're in the right area. And we can touch on this a little bit in marketing, but the other thing you want to do is make sure your company's representing the type of work you want to attract. And that was a lesson we had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. What what's what's your job size now?
It's 6,000.
Okay, so it's up to 6K, up from 3K. That makes a big difference.
Yeah, definitely.
And then what do the sales numbers look like every week right now? How many leads, how many estimates, jobs sold?
We we're at about 55 estimates a week,
Hmm.
42% close rate, and we'll bring in around $140,000 a week.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's good. Pretty healthy. And
Yeah.
those are the places to turn. So a lot of people, I can't be choosy about my work because I'm not getting enough. And that's like the most overwhelming question I get, as I told you before we started, is like, yeah, this is all great, Eric, but how's he get all those leads? How's he get all those estimates? So what's your marketing mix look like at SprayTex?
We are fortunate that we bring in, I think, probably like 180, 160 leads a week.
Hmm.
Our Facebook strategy, it's a little bit different. We cast a really wide net and we don't have a lot of resistance. So leads come in very easily, especially a lot of unqualified leads. So we get the names and numbers and we'll convert about 35% of them at best. But those 35%, they turn into a good return. We'll get at least 10x on Facebook. 2021, 2022, we were getting closer to 20 times our investment. The
Hmm.
last couple of years, whether it's our strategy, our partner, things shifting in meta ads, we're just not nearly seeing the efficiency. But we've also scaled the campaign to closer to $30,000 a month.
Yeah. I think that's the bigger factor. That's what I was going to ask. So let's break this down. So what percentage of your leads and estimates come from Facebook right now?
About 55, 60%.
All right. So half of it, so for someone listening, it's like, yeah, you've got 3.8 to $4 million of the 6.7 coming from Facebook. So for a lot of people, it's, man, what do I do? It's like, man, there's boatloads of business out of any one channel, and obviously you've worked on this Facebook channel a lot for a long time. I know you've done a lot with your content and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so and then that was the other question I had, is how much you're spending a month. So around 30K.
Hmm.
So 30K a month, uh, about 400 leads.
Something like that.
I'm just
Yeah.
doing rough math.
I think it's
Uh,
$40 a lead, roundabout.
$40 a lead, and
$45 a lead.
you're converting 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
Also, this points to why, 3 office managers to set 55 estimates a week, because it doesn't take that long to set 20 estimates, but it takes a lot of time
To
to
go
manage
through 100.
60 fresh leads a week.
Yeah, it does. One of the things we did a couple years ago is we realized like I'm just committed to calling leads on the weekend. And I want leads being set on Sunday. And I think some people would criticize that, but we book a lot of appointments on Sunday. And so we've hired that second office manager to work the weekends. And some people are just hanging out, watching football, and they're happy to book an appointment.
Yep. Well, you got to call people when they're available. That's when I always used to convert leads. It was on the weekend. In fact, Sunday evening was always like back in college. Like Sunday evening was like a killer time. Like that's when
People pick
people are
up.
just around and they're not getting other weird calls.
Yeah.
Um, all right, great. So Facebook, that's huge. What have you learned about Facebook? Like, advice would you give to people about Facebook? Because that's more spend than we do. We do, I think Foothills is the most at 15K a month. Obviously, we're in a smaller market than Dallas. And by the way, we've for sure seen like that being the biggest factor is how much more you spend because you're just reaching colder and colder audiences. So your
Yeah.
creative needs to be better and better. But yeah, what have you learned about Facebook?
Man, so much we could have a whole conversation
Mhm.
about it, but the short is, um, for me, in order to get the kind of results that we need at this spend, I've really got to be committed to learning and understanding how things evolve on a month by month, quarter by quarter basis. And I've actually got to know what it looks like to best manage my media buyer. I think you could enter the relationship with a lot of blind trust and just go, hey, here's my budget, here's the creative, go out there and go to town. But the more we communicate, the more I look at the individual ad set and go, hey, like this one's really booking a lot of appointments, but our job size is super low. You've got to get granular with the data and provide lots of feedback. We're constantly testing. It's an experiment that goes on year round. And it takes me about maybe half an hour a week,
Mhm.
but it's some of the most valuable time I spend helping grow the business and support the lead flow. So,
Well,
go ahead.
excuse me. Yeah, amazing advice. So if you're listening to this, like, don't breeze past what Mason just said. So let's unpack this a little bit. So
Sure.
it's a half hour to an hour a week of getting in there granularly. So, like, what are you looking at, and why is that? If we could have an hour long conversation about just Facebook, why is that the one thing that you're like, this is the most important thing? Is my direct involvement in the campaigns?
It sounds it just sounds funny reflected back. The estimates are definitely the lifeblood of my business. And I trust my sales team. We have a great process to get the revenue targets we need. So the big constraint becomes, can we set enough appointments? And in the last year or so, because we've refined our parameters, it's been a little bit more challenging to hit that total estimate goal. And so what I'm looking at is how many leads did we get today? So all after this meeting's over, I'm going to get on my Facebook ad manager. I'm going to refresh it and see how many have come in, how many came in yesterday, and how many have come in so far this morning. And I'm going to see which campaigns are working well. And then I'm going to put it down. And then once a week, we're going to make an adjustment. So I'm looking at total lead flow, and then I'm matching it to my daily reports that my office managers put, which is how many converted. So I'm looking at estimate set and daily lead flow over and over and over again. And it's giving me these patterns where I can start to see, hey, wait a minute. It's 12 o'clock. We haven't received a lead so far. This might be something we need to look at. And not to overreact and make adjustments too early, but to just be aware. Hey, if my office manager doesn't hit goal today, there might be something influencing it outside of her ability to convert. And so just staying in that feedback loop, getting feedback from her, looking at the estimates, looking at the lead flow per day, looking at the campaigns and the ad sets that are performing best.
Yeah.
That's where my head's at. That's where I'm making decisions.
How long have you been doing that?
4.5 years, five
All right,
years.
so 4.5 years. So you could imagine if you're listening to this, because it's not like 4.5 years ago, you're like, let's launch Facebook. Here's 30K for the month. 4.5 years ago, your business was doing a couple million a year,
Yeah.
or a few million a year. Um, 4.5 years every week. What that's probably, you've probably looked at that ad account 500 to 1,000, maybe more times. And not just like glanced at it, you're learning, you're studying, so you know it. So then the other point is why do you do that? Because I think, well, yeah, why do you feel like you need to do that?
Yeah, I think in most areas of my business, I've avoided mastery and I've been a bit of a generalist, but I've discovered the value of really mastery and face running ads online and being a digital marketing business is what I was committed to learning at Spraytex. It's just I needed to master how we acquired customers if I was going to continue to grow. And that's what it was. And it's worked well when we've gone for TikTok ads or we've gone on other platforms. I can transfer the same skill, the same kind of learning. And so whenever I launch new acquisition channels, I've got that foundation built. I've got that mastery.
It's so good, man. Just the value of mastery that I think most people don't want to commit the amount of time it takes to master things, but that's the advantage. I mean, there's few people out there that can effectively run 30 grand a month in Facebook ads. Why? Well, because they haven't mastered it to the level you have. I mean, we're us included, but even at our at our companies, like that's been the thing that we've learned, because we've gotten way more into it probably in the last 2 to 3 years in Facebook. Because before, well, anyway, um, what's the value you see? Like, what does that look like? I think a lot of people are like, I'm going to hire someone who's great at that, and they're just going to deliver. So where are people wrong in that assessment, or what is the value that you have to contribute? Why can't you just hire a vendor, hire someone who's an expert, and like, why doesn't that work? Why put in the effort that you're putting in? Like, just what have you learned about that for people?
It can work sometimes, and it can work for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I started. This guy cold emailed me. He said, "Hey, I'll run your Facebook ads for free." And turns out I was his first client. And he just started spending money and printing leads for me. And I had no idea how it worked. I just knew the phones were ringing.
Yeah.
And over time, as the campaign got more sophisticated, results, I started to want to investigate, where do these results come from? How come some weeks we're getting these big swings and other weeks we can't get the phone to ring? And so it really took me investigating and getting in there to realize there's so much more to this world than I realized. Oh, and guess what? The guy I hired, he doesn't have any clue how to run this campaign. He got lucky because we're in one of the biggest markets. And at the time, there were very few competitors running Facebook ads. So, right time, right place, wrong vendor can sometimes lead to results. But over time, I'll never forget, it was like third quarter of 2022 or 2021. I just, I was like, damn, we're not hitting our estimate target. What is going on? And so I interviewed and I found another vendor. He ended up being a good friend. And I just took the time to understand what changes they were making. And I didn't trust them blindly. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to test. If it works, we're going to do more of this. And so I was in there, I was with them. And I was like, hang on, this is my priority, not this. And provided them lots and lots of feedback. I give feedback more than once a week, and I have for years. And that's how it went from blind trust getting results to I feel empowered around the results. And I don't feel like the results are 100% dependent on my vendor.
Yeah. Well, they don't know everything. So I think that's thing a lot of people don't understand is like they don't know your business. They don't know what's converting. They don't know what's not converting. They don't know. They actually don't know the most important stuff that they need to know to deliver you results. But you do. And if they know all the ad stuff and you know all that, you can that's better than and you're transferring that information, that's better than what most people do. But the next step is like starting to actually learn and master that. And I don't think there's any way around that. If you want to scale marketing in your organization, you just have to master marketing. And Facebook, this is an awesome example of how far you can scale something to many, many millions a year. But there's other channels that you can scale to this degree. Like there are people who are doing millions on just Angie. And a lot of people like hate Angie, but there's people who have like got that dialed and are they're printing money from Angie. And the same is true with direct mail. The same is true with flyers. There's a company in Colorado. I don't know what they do now, but one year they did over 30 million. And it's like massive amounts of flyer dropping, like just crazy. And they do other things too, but I know that drives like loads and loads and loads of business. So, but all of that just requires mastery.
Absolutely.
So, what have you observed, man? You've been around Painting Business Pro, you've been in a lot of different coaching groups. What have you observed as the biggest mistakes people make with marketing and their approach to marketing and growing marketing?
They give up too soon, and they blame marketing for weak systems, weak process. Like I spent $1,000 on Angie, I got 10 leads, but none of them are answering. Or maybe half of them answer and you go to quotes for half, but they say something like, well, they're just price shoppers. They just get 3 quotes. Like Angie's selling my lead or my information to all these other contractors. I don't have a fighting chance. And so they haven't developed a sufficient system that turns that investment into revenue. And it takes time to do that. Some people, it takes more time than others. That's what I've learned. I'm very aggressive by nature. So we've always been able to make new acquisition channels work. We get the lead on the phone, we convert it to an estimate, and we turn our estimates into sold jobs. It sounds really simple, but each part of that process can have a big impact. And so at SprayTex, for example, we can spend 2 or 3 times any of our competitors to acquire customers because our sales rate and our gross profit is a lot higher than any of our competitors.
Yep.
So it just becomes this game that, yeah, you end up with a lot more leverage long term.
Yep. So I'm going to restate a couple of these because I think this is so important for people. It's why I usually don't ask people about marketing because it's not really marketing that's the problem. Like people want an answer. They're like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh, he's just doing Facebook ads." They say, "Well, it doesn't work." It's like, "Well, Facebook ads by itself doesn't work.
Right.
You need to know, you need to have a really good backend system to make it work. Angie doesn't work. You need a backend system to make it work. And the backend system is how I convert, how I sell, the profitability so that I can justify the expense. But then the other part is you got to master figuring that channel out. Every channel is a little different. How
Mm.
you work Angie leads or Yelp leads or Facebook leads or you name it, it's all a little bit different and it takes some mastery. So I think the thing you did in that Q3 2021 or 2 where you're like, this is my biggest constraint, I need to go and dive in, like deep dive into it, was probably one of the best things you ever did. I mean, that's probably made you more money than anything else you've done.
Well, that was right about the time that this, when I started the business, it was just like a massive bull market. Like there was so much wind behind our sales. You could just put $1 out there and get phone calls on pretty much any platform. But I really noticed a shift like within the last couple of years where it's not quite as easy, and that's okay. We just have to get better. And that's what I was focusing on, is like I'm not focused on less demand in the market. I'm focused on how I can get more of it and how I can really go deep and get unfair advantage. And this is a great market because all of our competitors are so sophisticated. So the playing field just keeps going higher and higher and higher. And it's been cool to see how many copycat approaches and how many different people are successful doing the fundamental things we've done for so many years.
Yeah.
And it's just got me thinking, okay, we've got to reinvent again. We've got to be even more original, more creative.
Yeah.
And it's a really fun game to play.
You know what? I was going to say, you got to love that game because there's a lot of people who are like, I mean, I even have the thought as you say, I'm like, damn it. Damn it. I've worked so hard to get here. It's like, yeah, well, this is the game. This is the game you're in. All right, really good. Real quick, where's the other 40% of your business come from?
We do a lot of referrals. That's grown year over year, probably closer to 30%. And then we do the Angies, we do next door networks. We still buy leads. Yeah, absolutely. We also run a PPC campaign on Google. Not convinced on that one, but
I've never seen it actually directly justified.
yeah, not convinced on that one. So far, it's worked out pretty well. And then, of course, our organic presence. We have 3 Google My Business locations. But that's another good example of just this huge change in our local market. LSA ads are what's most popular. And local service ads weren't even a thing a year ago. And 6 months ago, it was a handyman category, not even a painter category. And all of our competitors flooded to the local service ads. And sure enough, first thing that you see on Google is an LSA ad. And for whatever reason, we're just sandbagged. Like we're at the bottom of the list. And so we put in all this goodwill with Google doing SEO. We've spent money. And this is another game we've got to master. We've got to master how to be at the top of LSA.
Yeah.
And so the same rules apply.
Yep. It's good, man. All right. So there you have it, people. You got Facebook ads, you got referrals, you've got Google local service ads, pay-per-click, and lead services, which, spoiler alert, pretty much anyone that we ask who's doing multi-millions, it's basically that. I mean, there's a couple other things you can be doing. You know, we could throw in flyers, lawn signs, direct mail. We could throw a few other things in there, but you know, trade partners and affiliates and things like that. But that's mostly what it is. So the answer isn't what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And I think that's brilliant. Everything you said there is like, you got to go deep. You got to master it. You got to figure it out. Like that's your job. Yeah. You want to scale a business, you're going to have to get good enough at all these things.
No kidding.
Yeah. Okay. So, a couple of other directions we can go here. Are there any unexpected lessons you've kind of learned along the way where, you know, you made mistakes, you didn't listen to good advice, you have had big hurdles and challenges in growing the business that you didn't expect to have? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all of the above. I think where my head goes first is around relationships and fulfillment. It's like when I was 20 years old, did I really know what I wanted to build? Did I really know what I wanted to do with my life? And the answer is absolutely not. 2 years later, we're at $1 million. Okay, well, I have the rest of my life to go. What is this about? So that was a big hurdle for me, is just like, why am I doing this? And the relationships in my business were suffering. There was turnover. I had a lot of energy leaking around specific employees, customers. It was just very emotional for me. I'm definitely a sensitive guy, I'll be the first to admit, but business kind of wore me out emotionally. And I realized like I'm good at this, I can keep growing, but at the end of the day, how am I feeling? What are my relationships like? What is my health like? And so I really went all in on my mental health and got a counselor and focused on how I'm showing up for myself and how I'm showing up in my relationships. At the time, I was newly dating my now wife, and I was really committed to figuring it out this time. I think that's a big part of my journey in general is, I found you and your mentorship early on, and I've constantly sought out coaches and mentors throughout my entire entrepreneurial journey. And the same was true for mental health and relationships. And what I didn't expect is how much that was going to impact my business and how working on me and my emotional maturity was going to affect how I showed up as a leader, who I attract to my organization, their level of performance, and most of all, their fulfillment, their joy, their happiness at the workplace. So that's what I've been most focused on in the last 3 or 4 years is
Yeah.
how can I raise my awareness, become more emotionally mature, and attract and help transform my staff so that they can be more emotionally mature. They can show up better in their relationships with coworkers. And then the hope is they show up better in their relationships at home.
Hearing all this, so it's interesting to hear the first points you make on things. Like this is what I'm highlighting for anyone listening is when we talked about marketing, the first thing you went to was like, well, you got to get in there. You got to master it. And I think that's really wise and something people should listen to. And then when I ask you about mistakes and lessons and, you know, essentially a broad question about like, hey, what's had you be successful and what do you do well? It went to relationships. Um, you don't build an organization with 13 to 15 people and probably 80 to 100 painters if you're not focused on that. And you don't build a company like that if you're not dialed in yourself, and you can't support other people and being dialed in if you don't get dialed in. So anyways, I just think that's for anyone listening, it's like, okay, I should probably prioritize those two things if I'm not prioritizing them, the mastery and then, relationships, and that your whole business is going to be that. Like, you don't sell jobs anymore. You don't produce jobs anymore. You don't, your job is like, make sure there's enough estimates and make sure everyone is happy and fulfilled and empowered.
Absolutely. And it's the best job in the world.
Yep. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's yeah, it lights me up to be able to work with employees, see them grow, see them transform, gain more awareness and more self-esteem. It's great, man. We're not really a painting company, we're a transformation company that does painting. And I love that.
It's awesome. What can you share about the all the different coaching and resources and stuff you utilize? You mentioned it a little bit, and
Yeah,
I know that that's been something you focused a ton on, and so have I. So yeah, you want to just walk through like all the resources you've kind of utilized over the last 7 years?
yeah. At the beginning of my journey, it was a lot of Painting Business Pro, working with you guys, watching videos. That's still one of my favorite ways to like get the blocking and tackling of the painting business and refresh the fundamentals. And then I work with BTA from about 500,000 to 5 million. I'm still a member, but I'm not quite as plugged in. Breakthrough Academy is an awesome organization that helps you really understand your fundamental metrics, scaling, and systems. I think I could have gone way deeper, but it's helped me. And then I focus more on, then I started to realize my gift. And my gift was how I showed up, how I communicated, how I connect with people. And I wanted to refine that tool, that leadership tool. And I really focused on investing in my personal maturity, my language, my communication skills. And Dr. Sarah, my therapist, she's been a big mentor in that. And then I've worked with an organization called Conscious Leadership Group. They've been a big help for that. And even working in the autonomy course, which is a course you recommended, Jeff and the late Richard put that course on, and it completely changed my life. What I was focused on, what was important to me. But all of that type of work, it's more ontological. It's more about who you are, who you're being, how you're showing up, what beliefs, what stories you tell yourself about the world. And so it's a lot less tactical and a lot more soft skills, um, a lot more focused on the individual, the heart and soul. So I've spent a couple years in that journey. And I think you've got to have a good balance. You can't be all heart and all spirituality without the tactical. You need the tactical, you need the heady mental frameworks of how am I going to take on marketing and how am I going to lead the sales organization. But if you can couple it with some real wisdom and emotional maturity, it it's just so powerful. I couldn't put it into words.
Preaching to the choir over here, as you
Yeah.
know. Um, but I think generally speaking, people massively, massively underinvest in themselves as an entrepreneur. I mean, you're the value creator. You're the key value creator for your business. And when you level up, the business levels up. Like there's no better place that you could put your money than into developing yourself. And I think the way you articulate that with you've got soft skills, you've got tactical skills, like you need both.
Yep.
And I think there's so many places you can find them. Have there been things, Mason, that you've invested in and spend money on that haven't been all that great? Because there's obviously the things that have been really great, but how many times have you invested in things that didn't work out?
It's funny you asked that. Nothing comes to mind. Everything I've invested in, I've got something really rewarding out of.
Hmm. What do you
It's
think that? What do you think that is? Like,
it's how it's who I am in relationship to what I'm consuming. It's like I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, I'm here to be coached. Um, I watched your videos, no very little coaching, and applied it and built the business. I've shown those videos to dozens of employees. They haven't done anything with them. So it's who you are in relationship to the information, how you apply it. Do you have an open mind? Are you curious? I think that's a big part of it. Is I've gotten where I love learning.
and what are you spending? You said you're investing about $180,000 now in training and development across your organization. Um, which, by the way, guys, that might sound like a lot, but it's 3%. It is a lot. It's 3% of revenue. You know,
Hmm.
um, even a little less than that. What are you? Yeah, what are you spending all that money on?
A lot of money. A big chunk of it is with my counselor.
Yeah, for you and your teammate and your team.
For me, all of our leaders
Hmm.
are required to be in sessions.
Yeah,
We do a lot of conjoint sessions. So, like if you and I were business partners, we'd probably have a quarterly conjoint session where we just got clear and complete on things
yeah,
to keep the relationships really healthy. And then we do a monthly empowerment call where all of our team members across organizations get together and we have this call that's exactly what it sounds like. It's about empowering the individual, helping them become more aware of who they are and what they bring to the business. There's a lot of role play, there's a lot of feelings, and it's kind of weird. Like we're at work, you're with your boss, you're with your production manager, and it's getting deep. We're getting connected to the human and really becoming more aware of where each person comes from and where we come from and how we show up in the organization.
well, and it's really creating a culture,
Yeah.
and I think that will become, if you're committed to building a bigger organization, you're going to need to have a culture, and really the the culture is usually some expression of the founder. And, where you and I are similar is I was always really hungry for learning and training and development and all this. And then it made a big difference for me. And I just want to give it to my people. So then I come back and I just offer what I've found. And I hear the same thing with you. It's like I just go and I've learned this, and I want to offer it, and I've learned, hey, and this person's made a huge difference. I want to bring that thing that's made a huge difference for me to my team. And so, what I think people should be left with here is not that you've got to do it the way you do it or the way I do it, but that number one, like if you're not investing in developing yourself, you're just missing a huge opportunity. And then if you're not passing that along to your team is there because they're the ones building the business now. And if something made a difference for you and was worth it, then it will be worth investing that in your team. And furthermore, when you do that, you're really going to start to create a common language. You're going to create a common culture that impacts how long people stick around and retention. It impacts how much people enjoy their work, who they work with, how they work together. And if you don't have a culture, when you've got 15 people, I mean, things get complex and messy when you start getting a big team. I mean,
Absolutely.
what are you shaking your head about?
Everything you shared really resonates with me. And I think creating a culture and creating that kind of safety, we don't really have drama. We had much more drama and I guess like energy leaking when we were at 6 or 7 employees than we do now, double the staff. What it's done when we stand for this type of culture, some people are just like, this is not for me. And so they find their way out of the organization. And that's a really tough thing to do. I mean, some I've been fortunate to retain employees from early on. So that means I've been like 5 or 6 different Masons with different programs, all excited coming to the company. So they've really had to adapt and be along for the ride and trust that I'm bringing what's most important. And it's definitely a get on board with your full heart or find somewhere else to work. That's definitely how I've gotten over the last couple of years. It's like be a part of this and be committed with an open mind, or this is not going to work out for you because it's that important. Our culture, our values, what we stand for is that important. And once I started drawing the line in the sand around that, way less issues with employees.
Yeah, I think it's some people hear this and everyone's going to be in a different spot with like what kind of culture would appeal to me. But when you're the owner of a company and you're running a company, building a company, you want a distinct and strong culture. You want the kind of culture that would repel a lot of people because it will also be that much more of a magnet for the right people. And
Yep.
there's no shortage of people out there, but there's a shortage of careers and places people want to be. I mean, a lot of business doesn't have any heart and soul. It's just a job that people do so they can live for the weekends and they don't care and they don't love where they're at. It's such a necessary thing to be thinking about if you're going and building a bigger company. Like you're gonna have to have a culture. You're gonna have to have as you said, like this is what we stand for. This is what we believe. This is how we operate. These are the things we do. Um, I think it's absolutely critical to be thinking about that along the way. That'll pay big dividends. Just thinking about that along the way.
Yeah, it's created this exclusivity that's like there's like a there's an energy there's this energy around our team, and it can be a little scary to bring in someone new. It's like, can they adjust? Can they come into the organization and be a part of this safe space we've created? And so I think that's the biggest challenge is it's raised the bar for me in recruiting to make sure I really do have the right fit. In fact, I just went through the course and rewatched the recruiting videos. Like, I've got to step it up. Like, I have to make sure I bring in the right people more than ever.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is it makes it a lot easier to know who's the right person.
It
If you don't have
does.
a culture, you don't really know who's the right person, and then you're going to not by default, you're going to have people who value different things, and it's going to create conflict. So if you don't declare what a culture is, then you don't really have one. And if you don't have one, you're going to have the default culture of conflict, misaligned values, people in it for themselves. So it really frames out who to recruit, how to recruit, what you're offering, what you stand for, which then attracts the right people, and it's this positive, cycle where yeah, our attrition has gone to I mean it's almost zero, over time with having a clear culture and then pitching it that way and recruiting for that. And the more we align ourselves around that, the better things get. All right, man. So to just to kind of summarize and wrap up, like what is your vision for the future now? So you know that has to change too, because when you started this, if we went back and had people listen to the first one, it was like, I don't know, a couple years after you started, you're like, yeah, I just did 1 million a year. I went from working in the dish pit at the event venue, right? That was
Yeah.
you, right? And I was doing handyman stuff off Angie, and then I found this course, and then I started the business, and then you like again 1 million in like 2 years and grew. So, anyways, you didn't even think you'd do 1 million in 2 years. Like this was kind of accidental. Um, and now you're here, so you got to create a new future because the one that had you start the business has been fulfilled. Probably the next one got fulfilled. So what's the future you see and are envisioning and creating now?
I've spent a lot of the last 2 years exploring that. And it hasn't been as clear until recently, but it's been a lot of tons of opportunity. I mean, as an entrepreneur, there's opportunity all the time. You're getting pulled in a million different directions. And so I've had to get clear on who I am and what I want to do moving forward. And it's still being designed, but it's something around supporting leaders and entrepreneurs with this mental health journey that I've been on. And I started exploring that a little bit this year. I held a retreat at the beginning of the month called the Grounded Leadership Retreat with my therapist. And we brought men together and we helped them get a hold of their unconscious, help them become a little bit more aware of what's running the show for them. And it was a really healing, transformative experience. And I want to bring that to more people. And I don't necessarily want to do it just through a retreat format, but I want to help entrepreneurs and leaders learn how to show up better for their people, their families. And I think that'll mean expanding business along the way. Doing it in my own business with the painting company and scaling it further, scaling it smart, but bringing these distinctions around mental health and conscious leadership to my team at large.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll link below the YouTube video at least all the resources you mentioned. With obviously there's Painting Business Pro, Breakthrough Academy, the Tony course, the
Yeah.
Grounded Leadership Retreat, um, as like resources if people are interested in that. And then what's the that's a little more like a calling. And again, that's kind of a natural. I mean, I see that as like a natural evolution of, hey, I've kind of made it, and like now what do I want to give that I've received and like pass that on. What do you see? You have spray text painting. You've got this expansion location. You mentioned to me maybe another startup location you're doing. Maybe not. Working
Yep.
out. Not sure. What's the future with the painting companies? Like, do you see yourself? Is there a goal for spray techs? Is there something that's driving spray techs? And then what are you doing with these other locations? Do you see yourself keep doing that? What do you see yourself doing in the painting business side of things?
I see us continuing to expand both locations. I think there's 30-50 million in res repaint minimum just for spray techs locally here at DFW, and not even getting a fraction of the market share. So I think there's a lot more to go. In the next 5 years, I see us doing 12 to 15 million. I think at that point, we'll launch a commercial division. And I see really great leaders running the sales department, running the production department, running the office. And I'm coaching and empowering those leaders. And then for Yellow Rose, kind of like a 50-50 split commercial residential. We've been really successful with commercial at Yellow Rose, and we've done some statewide projects. So we want to continue to expand and do more statewide commercial with Yellow Rose brand. That's the short to near term 5 year future.
What about opening more? Is that something you want to do? You're not sure you want to do? I don't think you should, but spoken as someone who's gotten his ass kicked for 8 years, and that you've got more of a calling to, you'd build something bigger and better, keeping your focus on these two and the grounded leadership. That's already a handful.
Yeah,
Um, it's like another business to launch. It's like launching another business. I
absolutely.
already run these two, and then grounded leadership, and now let's actually launch this other business called launching businesses. That one I've been working at, and it's not an easy one.
I've learned a lot launching two now at additional businesses, and I don't have the systems built for that. It's just my time, my sword, getting it up and running. We don't have business launch uh, back end support. It's just my coaching, and it's not scalable.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I have the desire to create a scalable business launching business. I just don't think it totally appeals and aligns to what I want to do. So at this time, it's a no.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think you should either. Just because you've got some things that are super interesting. That's the hardest part about having success is you have so many more opportunities.
I think the other hard part is when you get a little bit of success, you start to believe that you've got this like green thumb. And so, okay, anything I go put my energy to, I can make work. And there's some truth to that, but there's also knowing to stay in your lane and focus on what you're good at. And what skills have you compounded over time, and how do those translate to completely different industries?
Yep. Well, anyways, anybody who's listening who's, at 1 million, 2 million, and you're already eyeing those other locations, just most people need to learn things the hard way. So I understand if you're like, yeah, it doesn't apply to me. Fair. But there's a lot of things on this podcast that you should listen to. Oh, oh, Matt's a little early. Um, anyways, I think there's a lot. Yeah, thanks for sharing your wisdom, Mason. Is there anything, and that's some hard earned wisdom that you shared here that is really, really damn good for anyone listening. You want marketing, like listen to this again. If you're going to be scaling people, like there's a lot of gold in what you shared. So, is there anything else you want to share about what you've learned or what you contribute to someone who's kind of in your shoes, but 5-6 years behind you?
Yeah, I still feel like our world is bombarded with what you should do and what business means. And it's about revenue, it's about KPIs, and it's about just going out there and like doing the ice bath and knocking 1,000 doors. And I just don't, I think people should spend at least that much energy focusing on what do they need to be fulfilled. What does your life fulfilled really look like? What's important to you? And are you missing in here that you're trying to get out there? That it doesn't matter how much revenue you do, it's not going to fulfill that piece inside of you. I think that's what I would get people to focus on, is like, enough with the vanity metrics, enough with the like raw prescribed world of business, inherited beliefs. What is it that's important to you? Why are you in this? And what pieces of you are broken that need to be healed?
Great, man. All right. Well, congrats, dude. Exciting to always hear the updates. If you guys want to see more of Mason's journey, you can dig through, just go on the YouTube channel and search Mason. I think we've got 2 others of these going back to like year 2 or 3, maybe year 4 or 5. I remember we talked when you were at 3 million. So awesome to see just the continued like growth. We'll put all those links below the video so people can check things out. And onward, my man.
Awesome. Take care, Eric.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.